It's a nice, beautiful day. It's winding down, but wanted to make a video on the whiteboard inside, but I don't know where my dry erase marker is. I only have one left, so it's out of the question for now. So here we are. I'm outside, right by the main drive of my apartment. My apartment is catty corner right here, so there might be some vehicles coming by, maybe some people, kind of being annoying, but we'll just power through it, we can do that. So anyway, what I want to talk about is what I call economic bottlenecking events. And what those are is basically the economic analog of biological bottlenecking events. So if you know what that is, you'll understand what an economic bottlenecking event is. Bottlenecking event. So a biological bottlenecking event is where some natural disaster or whatever, something occurs, and it wipes out a large percentage of any population of any species, and only certain members of that species survive for whatever adaptive advantage they have. And when they're the only ones that survive, they go on to pass on their genes and repopulate the gene pool and basically dominate the gene pool with their genes. So the economic analog of that would be some economic event that occurs, wipes out a big portion of the population, and with only a few, select members surviving, and then they come to repopulate the population. So we can kind of see where I'm going with this. That leads to what we see now, which is like consolidated wealth, but also just like the corporatism that we see today, where there's like few like main players in various economic sectors, and it's led to the consolidation of those markets. And these events that lead to this consolidation, they can happen in a lot of ways, but I think a lot of them are actually intentional. One of the main ways a lot of people talk about is monetary policy. With monetary policy, you can affect what's going on with the currencies, which can affect business, and it can slow it down or it can speed it up, and those can have dramatic effects on the survivability of various businesses. And some people claim that there's an overall plan, that this was planned a long time ago, this type of consolidation of wealth, this type of consolidation of various markets. I have to say, I think that might be true. More recently, the reason this is actually relevant right now is because we just had like basically a economic shutdown, and this was caused by a virus that was going around. And so the claim was that we don't want people to spread the virus, so everybody has to not be doing the same type of business they were doing. So the whole economy shut down, and a lot of people have already lost their jobs. Okay, a lot of small businesses, they could not survive 1 month without any income. You know what I mean? And they're shutting down. And so this right here is another example of an economic bottlenecking event. And there's been a number of these throughout history, especially like let's say in America, the last 100 years or so. I don't think it's any coincidence that since 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created and they started controlling monetary policy, there's been a lot of these ups and downs. It's really the depressions that really knock everybody out. You know what I mean? The downturns, the slow periods, because it cuts off the lifeblood of those businesses. When there's no money moving, that's the lifeblood. If there's no money moving, if they can't, if they don't make enough money to stay in operation, they die. They're gone. It's kind of like you suffocate them, and they're gone. And only certain members of the, economic gene pool, you might say, are fit enough to survive. They can survive a month without any income flowing. You know what I mean? And so when they survive, and then the economic tide changes, they're really the only ones left. And there might be other members that try to come back up, start businesses, but they have such a competitive advantage, nobody can really compete with them. And they'll outcompete everybody. They'll knock everybody out of the market. And so they dominate the economic gene pool in those markets, you might say. And so that is a basic overview of what I call an economic bottlenecking event. It's an analog to biological bottlenecking events. And it's what's really happened multiple times, especially over the last century, since the Federal Reserve started controlling monetary policy. Because all they have to do is change an interest rate, which will affect how much money is coming in versus going out in the economy, which will affect the amount of money in the economy, the amount of lifeblood that's flowing, which can basically suffocate small businesses, and that's happened multiple times over and over. And that's how these markets have been consolidated, how wealth has been consolidated. So that's something people need to know. If, there's a lot of people that say stuff like, oh, yeah, these really, really rich people, like, worked, for what they have. Yeah, but I don't think they worked in, honorable ways, maybe, in some cases. I'm not saying this does not go for everybody, okay? Some people just run their business. They just happen to survive an economic downturn and, had a competitive advantage when it, came back up. So, I'm not saying everybody, but for the people that maybe intentionally, maybe the people that are in control of monetary policy that intentionally caused the downturn, knowing what would happen, knowing that a lot of small businesses would be wiped out, stuff like that. Yeah, those people, that's not honest work. You know what I'm saying? So whenever I hear a lot of people say, oh yeah, these people, they work for what they have, maybe they did, but it doesn't mean they worked in honorable ways. So you got to keep that in mind. With that being said, I just think that's a pretty simple concept people should understand. So anytime there's an economic downturn for any reason, a lot of small businesses can get wiped out, and a few will survive, a few that were strong enough or big enough to survive. And then when the economy comes back up, they have a competitive advantage. Barely anybody can compete. They can really knock people out, by just lowering prices. And, it's a supply and demand economy. So, they can outcompete, anybody, and they end up dominating the market. And then when they dominate the market, then, everybody's like kind of subjected to whatever, they want to do, we have anti-monopoly laws, but there's markets where it's like two main competitors, and it's like, come on, man. I like variety in the economy, choice, because, that's a lot of supply side competition, and you get better products for that. When there's a few suppliers, and everybody depends on them to supply what they need, there's not really much competition for, not as much competition for, creating better products and competing for customers with lower prices. Really it's the big guys that win. If they survive a economic bottlenecking event. There's a lot of people that talk about a lot of stuff, like for instance, like universal basic income, stuff like that, to kind of redistribute wealth. I think it's fair, understanding the methods through which we came to get into this situation. it's reasonable. To me, considering how we got here, yeah, I would say that it's reasonable to have at least some type of universal basic income so people can, survive in this economy, especially with automation coming in. There's a lot of people that aren't going to have any source of income whatsoever, and they're going to need to survive, so, it's whatever. The economy is a resource-based economy, and all the economy is the management of resource, including, human resource. And if we could just direct that properly, through proper channels, put everybody to work in a good way, then, we'll all be good, That's what it really all comes down to, people taking care of each other, trading, taking care of each other, stuff like that. And so you really got to keep that in mind. But for now, I just really wanted to explain what a bottlenecking and economic bottlenecking event is. So there you go. Hope you feel more enlightened. And that's all I got to say for now. I'll talk to you guys later. Be safe, be smart, be awesome. I'm out of here. Stay safe.